So we're gonna make some pizza today. We're about an hour and 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours, I don't know, into the prep. We've got the dough here. You have to do it in 2 batches for the mercy of the stand mixer. But we've got our pizza dough here. I've got my recipe over there that I developed over the course of months. And now we get to wrestle it into submission. It's been rising for a good while. It's got pretty good gluten, so we don't need to do too much to it. We don't want to go so crazy that it gets real sticky. Clear this space. You can tell we're going to need more flour, and you know, you never know how much flour you're going to need to handle it because it all depends on how much humidity you have in your home that day. Sometimes the dough just gets that attitude to it. So we're making one of the giant sheet pizzas, and we're going to allocate about this much for my little pizza because his has meat, mine does not have meat. And it's just a little bit of a pain in the butt because we don't have a ton of counter space, as you can see. And this dough is very delicate compared to like bread dough. So we'll just move this guy out of here for right now. It really does just want to stick to this lovely French rolling pin all the time because, again, it's a very wet dough. And there's just not, you know, there are people that have the grace to do it, like, really well, make it look really good. I am not one of those people. I'm not a pizza maker by trade. I don't know if you can hear my bird in the background protesting because, well, if he had it his way, he'd be around here right now, and obviously we cannot have that, so he gets to be locked up in his cage where he's got all of his toys, but that's not good enough. You know how it is if you've ever had a bird. So we'll try to get this a little bit more uniform. And again, it's just tedious. We'll pick up some flour here. Just tedious. Gently try to kind of wrap it. Oh, and these pans are prepared with, I've put oil, a little bit of canola oil on the bottom, and then I stick cornmeal to it. And that, if I do my job right, that should prevent it from sticking and becoming a big disaster. If you don't do cornmeal, I imagine you would just have to use a lot of oil. So I'll put that over there for right now. Well, we muscle this one around because this is way worse. That first little pizza is kind of like a test run. Let you figure out if you've got it. To my right, we have everything that I've been preparing over the course of an hour. We got a bunch of cheese here. We've got Parmesan, low moisture mozzarella. You have to use low moisture if you don't want your pizza to be really soaking wet. We're gonna do ricotta as well, full fat ricotta. Parmesan is grated up in there, as well as feta. We've got the sauce, which is the same marinara that I make in another video for the pasta. So it's really nothing too crazy going on there. The toppings, we're gonna do like Supreme style. So you wanna pre-cook your bacon, make it nice and crispy. Trust me on that, because otherwise you're just gonna have kind of big wet chunks of bacon. You also, something you wouldn't think if you're kind of new at it, is what you wouldn't expect is that you also need to pre-cook, kind of saute up your mushrooms because they get really wet when they're cooking and they will make your pizza just into a swamp. This is the ultimate test if I've got my shit together. Now, we're trying, hopefully, not to drag too much of the cornmeal up, if that makes any sense. It's just, like I said, I'm not a professional, and it shows when I'm trying to maneuver this giant piece of dough into place. I've got no grace with it at all, especially to do it on camera. A little bit of pressure there. And again, it's got such strong gluten bonds that you can see that it's like, nah, I think I'll go back to where I was. And it looks like it's got a thin crust, but in the time, because we can't cook it in the apartment oven will not get hot enough for that. So we have to run it down to this big gas grill that we store in the garage. And that process, in between now and then, it's going to get really good and hot. So we're just going to leave it there so it doesn't flex back. Bring this little fella back. And you can see that this does make a lot of food. So first we'll do mine because I use the least of it. Just kind of getting that on there, and then that's going to get all of it. And this just has a lot of, it's got some fresh onions that are sauteed in there before you add the tomato, and then it's got fresh garlic, it's got fresh basil, oregano, a little tiny bit of sugar to offset that citric acid sourness that happens when you make your own sauce. Now, see, just setting that in there kind of gets that gluten to chill out. See how it doesn't want to rip itself right back now? That's one little way to get around that. Now we've got our cheese, which is really well mixed. Happy to see that. We'll do mine first, so we know how much we have left over. And you're gonna have to, you cannot use pre-shredded cheese. You cannot. The problem with that is it has like cellulose on it to keep it from sticking, and that also prevents it from melting very well. So we're just going to get this lovely mix right here, and if you thought we were done with cheese, you would be wrong, because now the ricotta comes in. I don't have a really fun way to do this. I'm going to use pretty much all of it anyway by the time it's all said and done, and then I can use the rest for other things, but I just kind of take it with my hands and I just kind of flick it all about like that into little clumps. If you go too heavy on it, you're going to have the same problem like I mentioned before, where it's going to be a big wet swamp pizza. And so these are about the biggest you can go for your pieces. So when you have enough, there you go. Wash our hands real quick. Now the fun part is the toppings. You can really get quite creative with it. Got our onions here. We'll pick that up later. I like a lot of vegetables on my pizza, just because there is no meat. And these big onion slices are going to crisp up really, really well because they're nice and thin. Some bell peppers there. That'll do it. Sometimes I do spinach, like when I did a really nice pizza. It was chicken, bacon, and then I made Alfredo sauce and used that for the sauce. And I did spinach leaves between the sauce layer and the cheese layer, and that was just fantastic. Okay, kind of sloppy chopped up here. I kind of like to sloppy chop them rather than just buy the sliced one, because you get all kinds of fun little sizes when you just do whatever. And it doesn't have to be pretty because it's a pizza. We've got our mushrooms. Again, these are pre-sauteed. They're kind of a little bit blackened because I use them in the same pan that I use the sauce with, so you've got like some tomato residue. And then that bacon. The pizza is not, unlike a frozen pizza, this is not going to be on the grill for very long at all. And so you would think, oh, these ingredients are going to burn, this pre-cooked bacon is going to burn, but it's actually not. It's never happened that way, because it's just only on here long enough to scorch that cheese. He asked for red pepper flakes, so we'll go a little bit nuts with that. In fact, he wanted it spicy, so there you go. Then went a little bit higher on the price point for pepperoni this time. Doesn't really have any preservatives or anything. And that is kind of nice, because it would defeat the point of making your own pizza, just to have something loaded with a bunch of junk, I guess. And the reason I'm making my own is because for the amount of food that this makes, it can feed us for a week, 2 weeks, depending. And it's significantly cheaper. I don't know how much you'd be paying at a pizzeria for something this massive. You have to keep in mind, this pan doesn't look giant, but it's about the biggest thing you can get that'll still fit into an oven, for example. It barely fits on the grill. And it's just so much more affordable than trying to go to a pizzeria and getting the same amount. And it's nice because you don't have to compromise. You can have a 4-cheese pizza and a Supreme in the same thing and not be paying out the nose for the extras. As soon as I'm done with these pepperonis, he's going to have to race me down to the grill and get that nice and fired up and hot by the time that I walk these pizzas down there. And that'll be good. And then I'll have to get the kitchen clean. In that time, he'll call me, tell me the pizzas are ready, and I'll come pick them up and bring them back up here. It's really good when we can divide our work like that. Otherwise, it's very tedious to do this by myself. But looking around, make sure we got everything. Yeah. Nope. Wrong. That was a lie. We have egg wash that I prepared here. It's, you got some Italian seasoning, which is oregano and a bunch of other dried herbs, mixed up with egg. I put some salt in there as well, and some garlic powder to kind of, because this pizza, you're gonna see when it's done, it's really gonna poof up big time. And so if you don't season this crust, what you're really gonna get left with is this massive bready monstrosity that doesn't really have any flavor. So this kind of makes it so you're like, oh, pizza and breadsticks, cool. And I could do a fancy thing. I could take some Parmesan crumbles and sprinkle them across, but I think this is plenty fine. And we do have no shortage of cheese on these things. So that's that for now. And we'll cut back to when these are done. Alright, so after pulling these bad boys off the grill, they were not on there for very long at all, because that grill does get stupid hot. I don't know if you can tell, but we lost a little bit of pepperoni. There's a winter storm warning, and so walking this across an icy, snowy, windy parking lot led to some pepperoni casualties. Now this might stick a little, and that's okay. The key is we don't want it to burn. And it looks perfect right there, just like that. With the cornmeal, you're not even gonna really get a scorched bottom. I don't know what pizzerias do. I just know that this method really works. You can hear the crunchy cornmeal. And again, I am not a professional by any means, as you can tell. I've never taken a class, a cooking class or anything. I've never attended anything that cool. I am just a person that likes to save money. But you can see what I mean when I say that this crust is going to bulk up. I will clean all this up later. Let's see how we did. Oh yeah. Just giant pieces right there. And you can see we don't have any scorching, just a nice browning where it needs to be. And there you go.